I'm Al Filreis,
I'm Anna Safford.
and this is ModPoMinute, actually 5 minutes.
We're hoping to scratch the surface of a short poem that we like.
So let's get started. I'm here with Julia Bloch. Hello, Julia.
Hi, Al.
We have a poem by John Clare called All Nature Has a Feeling. Will you read it and then we'll talk about it?
Sure.
Great.
All nature has a feeling. Woods, fields, brooks are life eternal, and in silence they speak happiness beyond the reach of books. There's nothing mortal in them. Their decay is the green life of change, to pass away and come again in blooms revivified. Its birth was heaven, eternal is its stay, and with the sun and moon shall still abide beneath their day and night and heaven wide.
So one of the things that occurs immediately, at least for me, is the thought that, well, John Clare is a nature poet, and the usual point we would expect from him occurs in the third line, which is that nature refers to or beckons toward a happiness that is beyond books. So
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about that? There's an irony there because we read this poem in a book.
We're reading it in a book, and it's also in silence. So not only does nature speak beyond the reach of books, but it doesn't even speak in a language that we're used to absorbing, on the page or in the air.
Do you think
It's in
John
silence.
Clare, do you think John Clare innocently or naively believes that the nature he means is beyond poetics and theories of aesthetics and things, that it's a real thing that we can get access to?
Well, I think it depends on what we mean by beyond. Like, is it something that we can ascertain or apprehend that's beyond the reach of books, or is it actually out of reach, right? Because if we can't get access to it in books, maybe it's something that we can't ever completely understand, which isn't quite the same as saying, it's something completely unworldly or otherworldly or even holy. Well,
it is unworldly in the sense that it has no mortality.
Sure. It is life eternal, right?
So there's no such thing as decay because
Right.
there's no passing away.
Right.
It's eternal.
It's eternal, yeah.
Right.
And it's eternal is its stay. So in the third to last line, I think that's a really curious phrase, actually.
You want to translate stay or come up with a synonym?
Is its having remained, its ability to stick around, its lasting impact or lasting effect.
And there's one more sense of stay that I don't think Clare meant, but it can be read here. It's the Robert Frostian sense of stay. Frost said of nature poetry that it was a stay against, I think he said confusion.
Yeah.
Right?
Like a kind of protection or kind of, barrier.
Formalism, the formalism of a poem is a stay against the chaos that you get when you don't formalize. Sort of like, to switch to Stevens, the jar in Tennessee. So stay could mean it's hedging, it's protection.
That's right, yeah.
Let's look at the first line. All nature has a feeling, and then these are examples of feelings?
Right. Well, of course there are examples of nature, but the line seems to convert these examples of nature into a kind of feeling. I mean, it's one thing to say all nature has a feeling. It's another thing to specify what those feelings are, or what those. It's almost like these things themselves feel. It's not that they represent feeling or they just inspire feeling, but they themselves have sense.
I was taught, Julia, that John Clare was a nature poet and descriptive, devoted to describing nature, that in the sense of his affiliation with the romantic or romanticist movement was as a bit of an outlier because he really thought that describing it, and yet the first lines are confusing grammatically. All nature has a feeling, then you get what seem to be examples, but that's a full sentence grammatically. Woods, fields, brooks are life eternal, another colon. Can you make any sense of how this so-called simple poet is being so complicated?
Yeah, It's kind of paratactic, isn't it? It's jamming these separate phrases together with these colons and also with this line break, so it becomes an in-jammed bunch of different thoughts and phrases. And to me, I can't help but think that this idea of what feeling is just getting deferred. Like the definition of what feeling is keeps getting deferred line by line, and he's doing that in the form.
The simple reading of it is that when you look at fields or describe fields, you have a feeling without needing to do anything else. But the more complicated interpretation is you get 3 examples, and then the line isn't jammed, and the next thing you know, he's saying something about them. It's not simply a list. Final thought on this poem?
Well, I said before that we don't know what the feeling is, but I do have to note that there is happiness in the poem, so that is a feeling that gets named and is concrete. But again, it's happiness beyond the reach of books. It's a happiness that's not mortal. I think that's very interesting.
Yeah. Julia, thank you.
Thanks.
If you liked this episode, watch another and subscribe.
And join us for ModPo, a free and open course at modpo.org.